Okay, let's get our ARPA meeting of February 20th called to order. And all the public that wants to speak may now speak. So we have Jennifer sent us minutes from our January 9th meeting. Any comments? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved. So,
Hold on, Emily, you approve?
Yes.
Okay.
so I don't know about the rest of you, but about January 29th, I think it was, I looked at the list and I said, wow, this is quite a few we have. I'm going to go through and sort of see how I feel about them, which I did. And lo and behold, what did we get? Almost an equal number after that. So it was like, well, what do I do now? Forget about the others? Or So why don't we go through the those that came in late? And I think it starts at number 34, which is the playground improvement for the central school. And
That's 35.
No, there depends which list you look at.
Oh, geez.
Oh,
35 are reversed between one list and the other.
Uh-oh, I don't know which list I got here. We'll figure it out in a minute.
okay, that's okay. We're going to do the
Bill,
first.
may I interject a quick point of something or other?
Yep.
Of information. At one point, we said that I was going to be recused in at least some instances. Now, I need to know exactly what that means now that we're getting down to actually looking at projects and evaluating them. I mean, I can see three levels or things of recusal. 1, don't vote. 2, don't rate. 3, don't talk. And I want to know which one we're operating under.
I think we should let you do all three.
I'm fine, but I promise to be.
I would like you, when we get to the ones on the Energy Committee, for you to give a brief introduction, speak to it.
I'd be glad to.
And you certainly should be able to vote, because I think we all come in with at least 1 or 2 items that we were really interested in.
Yes.
So, okay, so the playground improvements to the Underhill Central School.
That's the one that had a budget of $235,000.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about that one? I'm assuming that I'm making the assumption that we've all looked at that and we don't have to read the proposal.
Right.
I'm just wondering because my 35 isn't.
Okay, so he said 34 and 35 are reversed on some.
But we're talking about the UCSP.
Oh yeah, playground improvements is 34 on my list.
Okay. So we are up then to 34 on my list is from the Energy Committee, the electric vehicle.
So at this stage, Bill, are we simply deciding whether we need more information in order to move this to phase 2? Or are we talking about whether we want to consider making it, calling it ineligible at this stage?
All we're doing is a review of the.
Okay.
So we know what we're talking about.
So we all know that was a very detailed proposal. So we're all good with the proposal as it stands.
The playground?
The playground one.
Yeah, the playground.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing wrong with the proposal itself. We're not doing our ratings yet.
No.
Right, but if we're discussing whether we get back to the applicants, I would say we'd have to get back to them and tell them their proposal is somewhere between 5 and 10 times too much money. It's just unrealistic. This is a poor town. We're not going to spend 1/3 of ARPA on playgrounds.
Right, I agree.
So they have to get a sense of reality.
But wouldn't that be once we get to the ratings or?
Oh, I don't know. I thought the
Eligibility.
ratings was kind of the final. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Okay, we talked about
Luke
what
is
it.
walking
We
in.
talked about what it is. We know it's a So Luke, we've just started going through the proposals that came in since last meeting.
Great,
And we've only done one, so you've only.
okay. Sorry for doing that.
So if you have a comment on the playground improvements to the central school, you can make
I
it.
do.
Oh, you do? Okay, good.
Yeah. I've been in touch with, I think it was Sarah off the top of my head.
Yep.
I have it in my notes, the PTO. And basically just given the expense of that, I asked them to work with the PTO to kind of prioritize between that and the garden project. Like, what would your priorities be if you weren't to be approved for all of it? So they're working on that to get back to us. In the situation where we didn't approve the entire thing, they are working on ways that they could reduce the costs of both those proposals to something a little lower.
A lot lower.
I also have a question I'd like to know, over sort of a high-level question, if I may, at this point. Bill?
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Chairman, basically, one of the things that came up for me was there are a number of applications, schools, UJFD to a certain extent, the library, that have another stream of funding associated with them. And I'm wondering if we're, how we're kind of treating stuff that comes in that would be ordinarily a school project, that would ordinarily be handled through school funding as opposed to sort of through town funding, and same with the ones that were obvious to me were that schools, fire department, and like I said, to a certain extent, the library. Are we just saying everything's copacetic and we're just going with it, or is that just to have a special kind of thought process associated with it? For me, it kind of felt like a different animal.
My feeling on this, and I've given it some thought back and forth, is that I think it was appropriate for anybody to submit a request.
Mm-hmm.
Whether there's another funding or not, they had a need. And I think it's up to us to decide whether we want to meet that need based on the money we have. And if one of the reasons, if we say, well, no, we don't want to meet it because you have other funding, I mean, that certainly is a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's a lot of these that have some other kind of funding. For example, the library gets money,
Its own district.
from the budget of Jericho and Underhill. So that's other money.
Yeah, it's its own municipality. It can tax us in its own,
Yeah,
own behalf.
exactly. But they also raise money for doing other things. And I think this is another source of raising money.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to be sure how we were, for me, it had that kind of quality to it. And also, linked with this is there were several kind of projects or project areas that really looked like we wanted to not treat them like as purely individual, but sort of consolidate or work with them somehow as a group, as opposed to, like, for example, all the sidewalk and transportation and, traffic calming and et cetera, should somehow seem to me, be consolidated and worked with. And I'm wondering about the school ones also. There's a lot of things that are suggesting, do this for the schools, do this on school property, so on and so
Okay.
forth. Should we work with that as some kind of unit somehow?
So first off, I'd like to just take each one of these individually, just so
Okay.
people know what they are. Secondly, as far as grouping them, Emily I asked her to look at grouping the sidewalk ones somehow.
Mhm.
And I think we will wait till Emily gets home to ask her to share that with us.
Okay.
But I think after she does that, we may have an idea of how to look at some of the others that may want to be grouped.
Mhm.
Now, for example, the sidewalk, there's a bunch of those.
Mhm.
I never did count them, but there's a bunch of those. Whereas on the school one, there's two, the garden and the,
Yeah, there's two from the school and then a third that involves school grounds.
Right, there's
No, okay.
path and trail or
Direct
something like
path,
that.
yeah.
yeah. You know, and as far as recreation goes, there's some that could be grouped and others that may not be grouped that fall in recreation. So I'm not sure that we can have a hard and fast thing to do all that grouping and everything. Because what we want to do is get down to the point where we divvy up the $650,000.
Right.
And I don't think we have to have a hard and fast reason that we gave money to A and not B because B was part of C or, those kind of things.
No, it just helps me to organize, these
Right.
questions that arose as I was
Sure.
looking at them. How do we deal with this particular thing? And another thing with respect to the school projects, would that be available to townspeople in general? Or because a lot of things on school property have restrictions on what townspeople can do, and that to me would create a very different attitude toward it than if it was, just generally available to community to use. If this is purely it's an isolated thing versus a more general school thing. Did we know anything about that?
None of the proposals that came in from the school suggest a change to their current practices of public access.
Yeah. And what would
I
that be?
don't know if there's a policy. I know that I access school grounds with my kids anytime there's not a million other kids.
Yeah,
on the
I mean, I've
playground.
played basketball at UCS on the basketball
Yeah,
courts. And
I don't know
the
what
only
this
thing,
written
the only thing
policy
that I
is.
wouldn't go do is take vegetables out of their garden.
Right.
Please don't take
But
that out
don't
of
put
my
it past
garden.
me. There's that hooded woman in the garden again.
We live across the street.
Oh, yeah, it's not me, it's Jill.
We live across the street, and so the kids are always going over there on the weekend or after school times. We go over there, and my husband skis on the trails. And I mean, I've not known of any kind of limit to the outdoor facilities, really. So it's not even something that came up in my head as a concern.
That's my question.
Yeah, I can echo that. We use it all the time also.
Okay, so let's continue on then to the electric vehicle from the Energy Committee. Michael.
Sure. Basically, there are a number of these projects, and they kind of all knit together. There are 2 electric vehicle requests with slightly different flavors. In support of that, there's a charger request. If we're going to have electric vehicles, we would definitely need to have a charger, and that's being entered separately. And in addition to that, there is the electric upgrade to the town hall. At the time we put, and that underlies everything. I mean, basically, we feel that the electric upgrade to the town hall is absolutely critical. And 2 other proposals that we've got in as well, the solar and the possible future implementation of a ground source heat pump. Everybody needs upgrade to the electrics in the town hall. So, we feel that underlies everything. That we would need to have the chargers to support the EVs. Now, there were 2 basic EV approaches. One is, and this is one that actually we developed, I won't say in close cooperation, but with input from the town, that town's staff had occasion to use their own vehicles quite a lot of the time, and we wound up paying money for it and so on and so forth. And we thought it would be a very useful activity to provide an EV for that purpose. It's very good for these very short uses, and it really enhances the sort of townspeople's the idea of penetration of EVs in town. People get the idea that they're really useful, and it kind of models that as well. In addition to that, we suggested that one of our people suggested that one of the things that that a lot of townspeople need is a pickup truck. And it's very usually the case that it's not worthwhile for any of us to buy a pickup truck in order to do our pickupping. you know, when we want to use it once a month or every few months or whatever. And there was the thought that if something like this were available to townspeople, this could be a really great resource. And using it as an EV could also be a resource for town activities. There are things that the town picks up, pickup trucks as well. So these are two EV approaches that we thought would be helpful to the town's people, and promote EV penetration in the community as a whole. I think all of you are very aware that, you know, Underhill's, I forget the exact figures, but something like 40% of our energy use and close to 60% of our greenhouse gases are transportation derived. And we are not going to be in a position to do all that much with standard public transportation here to substitute for that. We're going to be using EVs if we're going to get out of that particular hole and still live in Underhill. So we feel that anything we can do to promote the penetration of EVs in our market would be an extremely helpful thing. Hence the two different EV proposals. They're entered as two different ones. But I mean, they can be combined, they could, you know, but we tried to get a pretty, you know, rough cost associated with them. But in order of priority, it would be town hall, upgrade, chargers, staff EV, and pickup, you know, general purpose EV would be our recommendation for order of preference associated with that.
I have a question on
Sure.
the one that just says electric upgrade. I didn't understand what that really entails.
Basically, we don't have adequate electric service to support. It's kind of like in your house, upgrading to 200 amps. Or,
Okay.
you know,
We
I
don't
don't
have
know.
enough amps
We
coming
don't,
into
yeah,
this.
we don't
Okay.
have enough, we don't, and enough we don't have enough circuits on the boxes
Okay.
to support, you know, it's not just the amps at the,
Yep.
you know, it's like there's not enough capacity in the boxes to support the additional connections that we would need for these other things associated with it. The town hall needs its electric service upgraded.
They didn't upgrade the service at Town Hall when they did the expansion here. So they added on that whole wing and they never upgraded
Oh,
the amount of, that was coming in from the poles.
Right, the total capacity, the breaker capacity coming in, and the number of circuits supported in the boxes are both need to be upgraded, and there are other things associated with that, but
That's what that means.
that's the bottom line. That's why we said upgrade. And we, at the time, we didn't have a number. I see that a number has gotten added since then.
Yes, so I added that number because I just did a 200 to 400 amp service
Yeah.
upgrade at my laundromat. And so I know how much I paid. We brought in all new wires from the pole. We put in a whole new breaker box.
Yeah.
We put in all new circuit breakers. We ran new wire through the building.
Yeah.
And it was about $11,000. So I just decided to put a number there so that you'd have a better idea than zero.
okay.
Yeah,
Good.
like at the time, we didn't have anything because it hadn't been formally estimated like.
And the guy, Bob Kennedy, who is the GMP man who met with us here, is the same one I met with down there, so I know that it's a similar scope of project.
Yeah, it'll be a similar kind of thing. So, and we would say that this is a critical, you know, this is an indivisible kind of project, and the others build on it.
I was curious why that would not be included in the town's separate request for town hall upgrades. Is that
I don't know for sure. We were treating it as, you know, something we knew had to be done, and we just, I know there is a different one for additional upgrades in the town as well.
I did have it in there originally. I pulled it out just because I thought
okay.
it was kind of more related to energy and.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the one that you did, that's $100,000, does not include the
Electric upgrade.
electric. Other questions for Michael?
The only thing about the electric vehicle question I have, I mean, it's from a clarification standpoint is what it was, you were basing this off of a leaf Is that
No, this is a purchase.
the
A
leaf?
Volt.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
the
Volt.
Bolt, I think, is
Okay.
what,
A Bolt.
was included in that.
Okay. And are those cars available?
That's gonna be a good question. We're gonna,
Just curious, because I ordered a car 13 months ago and it's still not here.
that could be
Okay.
challenging.
Just-
I think that the supply chain is gonna be a potential issue for almost everything that we do,
Okay.
but, that's certainly, you're right.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
So we spoke a few minutes ago about applications that go together. If you add up all the applications from the town, it's about $220,000. And which is to say about 34% of the total ARPA budget. That strikes me as a little bit too much for the town and a little bit too little directly for the citizens. I realize that you tried to work in the electric vehicle being a resource for the citizens, but I don't think it'd be too much of one. So my feeling is, as I look at these, disagree, okay. My feeling as I look at these is that we should rate them a little bit in terms of how much money there is, how big the pie is, how much money of it should go to things that are true needs, how much should go to the citizens to make their lives better. My feeling is the town is asking for too much money. There's no way I'm going to vote for pickup truck, et cetera. The electric upgrade sounds reasonable, at least for whatever other electric stuff we ask for. In the argument for the town hall renovation, it was said that the top floor is almost unsafe. Is that somebody's opinion, or has an engineer looked at it?
No, they've had builders here.
Okay, well, then
The
that's,
floor is caving in.
then that's something, hopefully not the part we get to walk on. Then that's something that sounds like it might be useful. And when we learn about things like the floor of the town hall caving in, or we look at the shape of our roads, we just realize that Underhill is a very poor town. We don't have enough money to do things up to an appropriate minimal level, which is to say, keep the town hall from falling apart, having the roads drivable. And that too should go into our thoughts about what to do with this ARPA money. That's my comment.
Good comment.
I would like not to start out with an arbitrary division, but I think that should certainly be one of the considerations we take as we evaluate these things, because, also the quality of what we've got and, the things behind it and so on. But I think that it makes a lot of sense to incorporate that into our decision making, but I would like not to say 34% is too much or too little without a closer examination of what's going into those. And but the other part of that question is it your thought that we should be proposing some alternative use of the money, road upgrades, or something like that? Because we do not have a repave X or rebuild, full depth rebuild of Y or anything in this. So since it didn't come into us, are you suggesting that we should be proposing that?
No, I'm not suggesting that.
Oh, okay.
I brought that up only in the context of convincing people that we're a poor town that doesn't meet its basic needs with its income.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to comment on this? Was brought up? Well, then let's go on with down to the botanical garden.
What about the Underhill Flat Recreation Field?
Oh, that was in the middle there, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I have a comment about that one.
Sure.
So that it's number 36, and it says Underhill Flats Recreation Field. That was from a resident. And I know that the comment was made, or when it came in, it was referenced to buying a piece of land over behind, I believe it's in the Jacobs, some of the Jacobs Field.
Yeah.
And if we decide to go ask for more clarification, then we get more clarification. But it's my understanding that that field is about to be purchased by the church to be used for a housing project, which already has grants and funding and I believe a signed contract for purchase and sale. So that land isn't really available for this purpose, regardless of whether or not we, as a committee, think that it's a viable project. I don't believe that that land is available for something.
I had a similar comment that it seems to conflict with another one of our applications, which is the church Harvest Crossing proposal. We have a $75,000 proposal in from them in our own file here. So I gave this one a pretty low. It's one of the few that I felt pretty confident about assigning an actual number to, and it was kind of the bottom. But because of the conflict with what other stuff that's going on.
But I don't know if this is another piece of property or not. But I don't.
From the description, it's the same property.
Okay.
Right.
Phil doesn't have any other property,
Okay.
and he did reference that it was the Jacob property,
Okay.
so
Right.
It's also $200,000.
just
Yeah.
about,
A lot of money.
yes.
So it'd be a big
And that's
company.
only the cost of the land, and he wants to make recreational fields out of it, which he did not take
Right.
into
And
consideration.
we do have recreational fields at Mills River. So.
Yes.
And once we have a sidewalk, we can get there. Sidewalk and a bike.
Okay, let's move on to 43 Botanical Garden. Anybody want to comment on that?
I'll just comment, I did have some communication with Lisa, who put in that proposal, to get a little bit of clarification that it was not her vision that a completed botanical garden was an entity of the town of Underhill, but a nonprofit that would be managed maybe by a range of organizations. And what she is seeking is the very beginning of what would be likely a decades-long planning project. There's no particular site in mind, no other agencies or partners that are thinking about this yet.
So, knowing that, where was this $75,000 going to go?
To establishing a steering committee to answer some of those initial questions of like, how would this be structured? Where would the actual funding come from? But this would be the very start of, in her vision, the very start of what would be a very long and probably multi-million-dollar process.
Okay.
Thanks for doing the homework on that.
Yeah, helpful.
So the EAB treatment for trees?
I also spoke with Don about, this is my section of the list here, I guess. I spoke with Don about that. He had initially wanted to set up like a rolling fund for EAB treatment. And what he is suggesting by treatment is removal of roadside ash trees proactively so that they don't all blow down in the coming storms and make it really difficult and expensive to do all at once. He was initially suggesting a rolling fund. He understands that these funds aren't really an option for that, but he does believe that I think it was $200,000 that he put in for that could easily be spent in time. And he has started marking out roads in the town and is coordinating with GMP and Vermont Electric Co-op, who's also doing proactive ash tree removal.
Do you mean marking trees that are seriously diseased?
Marking even live, healthy ash trees that are at risk of falling in town right-of-ways, with the understanding that they're all going to be seriously diseased in the coming decades.
Right. But
So-
in terms of keeping the roads safe, one could imagine looking for sick ash trees and cutting those down to $1,000 a tree. And whether that's 10 or 20 or 30 trees a year, that's a lot different than 200,000.
Yeah. I think his primary argument was it's cheaper to do this proactively than wait for every storm and then have to pay subcontractors, urgent pay rates to go clear the roads. But certainly it's a large and expensive problem, and this amount would only solve a small fraction
I had a number of thoughts about this. One is, it wasn't clear that the money, it was like, would all be spent in time to satisfy the requirements associated with it. So it would actually have to be spent in that case. But, with that kind of money and this kind of a level of, I thought it would be really helpful to have some kind of a overall plan and strategy and schedule that we work from, and prioritization, kind of like maybe what Nori's suggesting. The like you get the diseased ones first or whatever, instead of just sort of throwing a couple of $100,000, a third of our funds at, miscellaneously cutting down ash trees. It didn't seem like a particular, it sounds like something we're going to have to do, and we ought to develop a way to deal with it, but I'm not sure this is it.
They are doing an inventory, it's my understanding, so they haven't done that yet, but he
Yeah.
wanted to get something into the committee, so.
Yeah.
Other comments, questions? Moving on to the fire department's request for a repeater. And it seemed to me that there were two of these that came in,
So
but I don't see the other one.
It's up above under, I see the orange, yellow one. I just replaced it because I didn't want to make another new one. They first came in, if you look at 12, originally UJFD came in, member with 35,000, hire a new employee.
Right.
You went back to them and said, we need to look at something that we can specifically address. We're not going to, recommend funding an employee. So we talked about coming back with something specific. So that I just stuck that one there, so we didn't have to have a new one. And so one of them was the life safety equipment for $43,470, and then the other new one was the repeater, which is number 45.
So I guess I'm confused about this repeater, because there's a repeater in Underhill, there's a repeater in Jericho, and they talked about a backup one, didn't they?
Yeah.
So does all three of those fall under this 11,000?
No, I think this is just for the backup.
Oh, this is just for the backup, and the other two are up in the number 12.
No, I think they have the other one. They have them in each. I think they have them in each, but they're looking for a backup.
Okay.
That's my understanding, but.
One thing that wasn't clear to me on this is, this seems to be the full amount. Are we funding Jericho's portion of this too?
So this is the full amount, yes.
Yeah.
And so in others, what I did is I looked at it, I just would, if I was going to fund this, I would fund 40% of it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he suggests
Yeah,
in the application.
right.
The first proposal from them does not include a repeater.
Yeah.
It's other life safety equipment. It's just the one backup repeater in their second proposal.
So, so there's they're not replacing any repeaters. They're asking for a backup.
Correct.
Okay, this is where
I wasn't sure about that, because in the application they mentioned an Orr Road repeater. Like it sounded like they had one on Orr Road and don't anymore, and that probably would have functioned as a backup at some point when another one went down. And so they're asking for a spare one, which may or may not be placed on Orr Road to be useful there. But so yeah, it wasn't totally clear to me, because it sounded like it was spare, and then there was this Orr Road mentioned. And so yeah, I have to admit that it wasn't truly clear.
Well, I guess we need to ask for clarity on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this to go to phase 2 then, presumably? Or not?
I'm sorry?
Is this a phase 2 thing or not, just a clarification of this one?
I don't know. Let's see how it falls out after we go through it.
Yeah.
So the next two are put in by the same person. Can anyone talk to those?
I can.
Okay.
I met with her. She came in, Trinity came in, and we talked about both of these. They are, one is through the schools is having, and she's already spoken to the schools, they're interested in each purchasing up to a certain number per classroom of these kits that you can use to teach students about monarchs and their life cycle, and then you raise monarchs and you tag them and you release them. And then down the road, even integrating that into some, like for instance, like some of the other schools do communicate with kids in Mexico. So they have like sister brother things, because that's where the monarchs go. So one piece is to supply the schools with the kits. And then the other one is to set up areas where we already have recreational, like where we have open spaces that are already conducive to and already have some monarch populations. So like one is Tomasi Meadow, where we already have lots of the milkweed there. So it would be simply putting up a kiosk there to educate people about monarchs and the monarch development, and then also to talk to whoever's mowing the roads or the trails there, that they wait until, that they do them earlier before the milkweed grows up, and then wait until the milkweed is gone, so that the monarchs have already fled. I don't know what the word is, but what it's called. But anyway, so that's what that was. So they're building kiosks with education, an educational component.
The habitat preservation isn't, strictly speaking, habitat preservation, it's educational, it seemed to be an educational
Yeah.
thing associated with the habitat. It wouldn't
No,
add anything to the habitat per se. It just makes people aware of the habitat, and in that sense preserves it
by maintaining it perhaps in a slightly different way.
yeah.
That's not what I understand and what I read by designated land within and around the town of Underhill as preserved monarch habitat. That means that land is for the butterflies at those times of year. And those times of year are early summer through early fall. Says we have a spot like that our neighbors keep on
Yeah.
Holland Farm Road. And they basically just keep everybody out of there for several months. Casey's Hill and Tomasi Meadow are heavily recreated areas. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that we can imagine keeping people out of a reasonable
Yeah,
amount
she
of
didn't
it.
mention keeping anyone out of these areas. She just simply talked about not mowing down the weeds.
Okay, well, I'd like to make sure of that.
And she was also, the other area she was talking about was the area where the old town dump used to be up on New Road, that you can't build on because we are only allowed to go a certain depth. And that's an area that the town pays to have it, brush hogged in the summertime, but we're also required, we get the water tested up there and things like that. But also putting a kiosk up there on the trails, which is in the Underhill Conservation District up there.
Now, the monarch education one, it sounds like something that would be an ongoing kind of thing. It's like, we would have X amount of dollars to do it, but I mean, you would need to buy more of these kits periodically and so on and so forth. Right. It
I got
sounded
the
like it
impression
was.
they were for 10 years or so.
Yeah, I think they get the kits and got a microscope and a container
Okay,
and,
yeah. So that would go for
and a net
10
and,
years worth of stuff. That seems more than an ongoing thing.
certainly we can ask questions if, depending on how the ratings go tonight, we can certainly ask more clarifying questions.
And I think for the kiosk one, my recollection was, didn't it say something about did not include site preparation cost or something like that? It was just for the
purchase of them.
the purchase of the kiosk itself. So in other words, this cost is not really the cost of the project that would be.
No, because the town employees, the town
Is that the
road
plan
crew
to
could dig some holes and
yeah, to do the
put some posts
to
in.
have town basically absorb the cost associated with that.
Correct.
Okay, great. Yeah. So this cost then would represent what we're really asking.
So that leads me to believe, did Daniel come in and talk to you on the next two?
No, I have no idea who that is. Those came into me, but I don't know anything about those. I read what you read.
I read that too, and I said, this sounds like something that the highway department does.
Yeah, I didn't know, I didn't know we had these major issues. My guess is that this would be something that we would want to talk to, the town, Brad, and who deals with our, stormwater,
Yeah.
you know, mitigation issues. So I don't know anything about those. I don't know whether they're on a budget or whether the Highway Infrastructure Committee is talking about.
Well,
I don't know anything
I
about
don't know what happened to the Casey's Hill parking idea, but, you know, that was immediate, we were gonna do that right away at one point, and the Casey's Hill drainage question was incorporated in that at the time, and so one of my questions is, where did this all go? Is this,
I have some insight onto that.
okay,
A culvert was purchased and the select board said, let's just do it. We said we were gonna do it, let's just do it. So the town, without ARPA funds, said, let's just buy it and we'll get it done. So the select board directed them to buy the culvert. They bought the culvert and they were going to place it there. And then as we had gravel coming off of other projects this spring and fall, we were going to put it there and absorb any additional costs through the town through purchasing materials. And then a culvert, in the last storm that we had, there was some kind of road eroded. And they took that culvert and they used it. So we're back to square one on that, because it got used for an emergency situation. But I don't think it's, as from my discussions with Brad, it's been pulled off of the ARPA request. So I think they're gonna deal with the Casey's Hill. And I would imagine that would
yeah,
address the
it
drainage.
has to be part of it.
So
Well, they still have the flexibility to use ARPA for that if they so choose, right?
Correct.
That's a-
Select board can always
Right.
decide to do that. But it's not, I would imagine that if they do that project, that's going to address this
Yeah,
issue
that
of
comment
the
when
sledders
this one was
coming down the hill
circulated.
into that,
yeah. Seems like whatever this is would be,
part of that.
or we could just pass this on to whoever's doing that to say that's.
And
a
the
big
range,
process.
the range
It
road
is.
stormwater thing, I don't know anything about. I didn't know we had a major issue there.
Well, it sounds like this guy has a major issue because it's in his yard. It's kind of like I've got a little bit of a drainage swale off of one side of my yard that if it really got bad, it could maybe cause some erosion or something like that. But it doesn't sound like it's a more universal problem from what I read of it anyway. It sounds like he's got some water in his yard that's eroding a few things, and it's like he wants the town to fix that, in essence.
Yeah, no idea.
To the tune of 80,000.
To the tune of $80,000, right? But I mean,
Well, I think that's something that's handled by roads. I mean, I had that problem actually at my house and we just called the town and they came and fixed it, so I don't know.
Okay.
Seems like that doesn't need to be so complicated, or involved, in these list of proposals.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just reach out to roads and see,
and going to infiltration galleries seems to be overkill for most things that we've got. If we went to infiltration galleries for every drainage problem we had here at Underhill, talk about being poor.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you just
Exactly.
say the town has a process for this. That's not an ARPA proposal, so.
Right.
I don't know.
That makes sense to me.
So number 50, I really was a little confused about. Did you
This
read
is the
number
same.
50 and think it was part of the sidewalk
No,
project?
so this is another woman who feels that Underhill Center is very unsafe and that we should do improvements to make it safer. And she is obviously really supportive of the sidewalk project, but this is one that she submitted previously, was early on. And I was supposed to clarify with her what she really wanted. And so I was like, well, you're kind of behind the curve on the sidewalk, like there's a lot of other sidewalk stuffs going on. And she's like, well, no, I want like signs and speed bumps and stuff like that. So we had encouraged her to be more specific about what
Okay,
she
that's-
wanted. So then she added signs and she reached out to Jennifer about what she wanted. So then that was the revised proposal with, I actually think speed bump seems like a more economical way of dealing with speed in Underhill Center. Like more, I mean, honestly, like people just blow by those signs,
Yeah.
Well,
too, so.
but the thing that she's looking for is, I mean, $1,600 worth of traffic improvement is gonna be, I mean, it's basically nothing. I mean.
It's the cost of, it's pretty specific. I
Yeah,
mean, I went and
I
got the
know
prices
exactly
for
what
it.
she's talking about.
It's 2 of those speed humps.
Yeah. Well,
Or-
they're portable ones, though. They're not actually speed humps.
No, well, we looked at the asphalt costs too.
Oh, okay.
And if we were to put in 2 of those similar to what they have in front of the Jericho
Store.
store, they're not expensive.
Right.
In the past, we've gotten feedback from the road crew, like, oh, we can't do that because we plow and then the plow and this. And then the other issue has been, and legitimate, is the fire department has issue with those, because if you put those, then the fire department has to slow down
Yeah.
on a call. But now the way that they place those is instead of going all the way across the road, they stagger them, and they stagger them in a way so that the fire engine can go through, or they do grooves in them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're called, I forget what they're called, but there's a term for them, where the speed bump goes across, but there's grooves that straddle the yellow line. So if it's a fire engine and it's going through the center of town, it knows, and the fire departments know that if they straddle that line, they're gonna fit their tires in the groove.
Mm-hmm.
So this is apparently common knowledge to emergency personnel.
Mm-hmm.
So those were specific signs and specific speed bumps.
Okay, well, the ones she had in the thing were actually portable.
Yes.
How are those affixed to the road? The portable
The
ones?
portable ones, they're not affixed to the road.
Well, you
They're
do.
fixed at the ends.
Yeah, the end,
Yeah.
basically, yeah, with
They just tie them down, basically.
they
Okay.
spike them down.
I was actually surprised to see this come back because I thought she would be satisfied with the fact that there were increased budgetary allocations for that type of stuff already. So I don't know, I mean, obviously the town knows about this. I don't know, I'm not sure a citizen in town providing another solution than the one that the town already came up with is really makes sense.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So,
It is in the budget this year,
yeah.
to buy 2 more of those traffic calming signs, like when you approach on, the lumber mill and when you go into Jeffersonville. We have 2 of those in the budget this year.
Those are actually pretty good. People do pay.
Oh, the
attention.
one
They
that-
work.
That
Yeah,
shows you how
I
fast
slowed
you're
down for
going.
those, but
Yeah,
not
so we-
I'm gonna slow down for a speed bump,
We have 2 of those in the proposed budget that will be voted on in a month.
Mhm.
What
less
about
than
Route 15? Oh, that's the state's responsibility.
That's the state. So, yeah, so I don't know what to do with stuff like this, but, this to me is like the culvert, it's like, this stuff just needs to happen in town, and there's a process in town, and I don't know, so.
Yeah, I agree. It's in a little bit, we're rewarding the squeaky wheel that makes the noise.
Yeah.
But
There's
that's
probably
okay,
a
at
lot of
least
other people that need
they're
culverts
getting their,
and speed bumps.
they're getting their comments out there, and we can then go back to them and say, hey, this is an interesting suggestion. Perhaps you go to a select board meeting and
Yeah,
talk to them.
right,
Well,
right,
I think
exactly.
the other stuff that's going on is way more important than than that portable school, whichever speed bump. A non-portable, kind of a regular 2 minute speed bump could be useful, but I question that. I used to do traffic calming studies years ago.
So these things don't work, is what you're saying?
Well, no, they do. They'll slow people down for about 200 feet and then they speed up again. This is what it amounts to. 200
So-
feet was the number that gets used.
I have found that when you're in a low traffic area, like a little neighborhood or something, they work because you're already going slower and you tend to slow down. But if there's a lot of traffic, those things just get
Go with the
moved
traffic,
and don't work as well.
Does it work better to reduce the speed limit to 20 or 15? I'm thinking of the little girl who was killed in Jericho a few years back.
That was horrible.
Now, that's a tricky spot to drive in the best of conditions,
Right.
especially if you're drunk coming out of that tavern. But in any event,
I
that,
don't think that was the one that got the girl.
no, I wasn't. But it seems like people generally do slow down for that situation because of the speed limit sign.
Well, yeah, they do, but 25 is the lowest speed limit that's legal to set in Vermont.
Okay.
So you can't.
And it's
set a
already
lower speed.
30.
Well,
30.
Yeah, but remember, people that slow down because they know of it are those that know of it. And there's a lot more traffic goes through there than people know of what happened at that corner.
Right.
Right.
I agree. When I come through there, I think about that.
Every
too,
time.
but-
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I do.
Okay, so
Last two.
the last two from the planning commission.
Well, the very last one is stormwater runoff, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that goes to the highway department, doesn't it?
Well, that's what I thought when I read it.
Yeah.
So I found it interesting that there was an Underhill stormwater mitigation plan. And so this is, I mean, isn't it coming from, right, so it's coming from a commission of the town saying, hey, let's get these projects done.
Right. So I have one bit of information about this, which is that it says that there are 10 to 13 high priority road segments. Those are assigned by a state group that comes out and looks at the roads and decides whether there's an erosion problem based on various criteria. And according to Brad Holden, the last group that came out were interns. So our high priority road segments were evaluated by interns. And there's going to be a new assessment, I believe, this year. So what's high priority and what's not high priority might well change. And if Brad can go with them as he's hoping to, it definitely will change. But this is a highway issue.
Are we ruling out highway issues for this?
We have ruled out some highway issues for this. I don't know if that's a given for all of them, but
And I'll just chime in and say that the highway, the hazard mitigations and the highway infrastructure committee, and they are looking at the high priority sections. They've determined that they're gonna do English settlement, and they're doing work on that. And that's because of this MRGP thing, which is
Right.
MRG, don't ask me, but it has to do with hazard road mitigation something, okay? So that has to do with this. And based on that, then they get grant money to do those projects. So, and they do a certain number of segments, and Brad has a whole plan on which segments are, which are, again, high priority. So
the town's on the case.
the town seems to have a plan for addressing that one.
So maybe we should clump all these things that we think are, related to how they handle these issues, like that come through ARPA together, to just say like, these were all proposed or something, and then let those people know that we sent their proposal to the roads committee.
I think that's what we should do.
And
Send
then
it
if
there.
the roads committee decides that there are some things there that they would require ARPA money for, then they can send them back. I mean, at the end of the day, the town's all gonna decide how to spend this money anyway, so,
Right.
I don't know.
As Jennifer
That
said,
makes
there's
sense.
one of the sources of money for these things is the state. The state gives a lot of grants out to
Yeah.
highways. And we get a certain amount.
Yeah,
And we can keep getting a certain amount.
right.
And what about you skipped over the film series?
Yes, I did.
Harmless, inexpensive. Why not?
We have no more questions about that, though. Okay.
I don't know, things like that one in particular, one thing that I'm thinking about with this money is that, if the proposal falls into something that the town and I think this conversation was happening while I was driving, but if the town would never spend money on that, like that would never be in the town budget,
Right.
Like, does it make sense to spend the ARPA money on it? Like, there's no way something in that category would be part of town expenses, like
Right.
potentially making a film series. I don't
Right.
know.
So-
Like, does it make sense to put ARPA money there? I don't know.
So are you saying that it does make sense to do it because it's not going to get put in any other way?
I don't
Or
know.
that-
Well, I'm just debating that because
With
it does
yourself.
seem like if the, select board's obviously going to decide how to spend the money, then it feels like it should be in the purview of things that the town spends money on that are like beneficial to the town. Not that the film series wouldn't be, but I don't know. Seems a little random.
I can say that committees in general can request funds and get funded to a certain extent. And, the Energy Committee puts in about $500 a year and, for minor expenditures. But, so at least in theory, the Planning Commission could put this in as a request as part of their, and then the select board would say, okay, we'll award. So in a sense, it's not that we would never do it, it's just that it wouldn't. The select board wouldn't decide to run the film series, but the select board could fund the planning commission, who would then run the film series. So it's not completely out of the realm of what might happen.
Well, you can use the example, could be the Conservation Commission does bring in speakers and does film series, but that's in their requested, that's in their budget.
So this is just an alternative way of funding that particular.
And they did not ask for that in the regular
budget, right?
And I wonder if we want to be careful with that reasoning just because it would sort of exclude school projects in many ways in terms of we could just say, oh, that should be in the school budget and not consider those. I don't know.
Ones also, to be honest, when I'm saying that, because, like if there's a school, like should not the towns get together and give a portion of that to the school, like.
The schools are getting ARPA funding also. Right?
Exactly. So like, that's what I'm wondering, like, does it make sense for us to spend that money that we have allocated here for schools when schools are already getting money and they divide separately, right? Like they already allocate like by population, whatever, what those schools are, I get more excited about spending the money. That's something that goes to the school that also adds a new feature for the community, like the trail, for example. I like that because it's like a two-way street. Like the town is giving back some land so that people, like, besides just the kids who go to that school can use that land, But
The vast majority of ARPA funding that's going to school districts is very narrowly focused on recovering academic losses and mental health challenges. It's often like, committing to funding a certain number of positions for 3 years or certain curriculum programs, things that do not have a benefit wider than the narrow recovery focus that it's intended for. Schools aren't getting a pot of money anywhere close to the level of flexibility that this funding offers.
Okay, that's good information.
That's good
yeah, I didn't know that. Okay, again, this is just things I've been wondering about.
This proposal didn't seem to have a person identified who would actually lead it. I mean, there's going to be questionnaires to the farmers, if they can find 4 farmers in Underhill anymore. But
Actually, I think there are, believe it or not.
There
I
are.
think there are. Right, but not 5, right?
I don't know. I have a hard time particularly with that one, putting it into like the appropriate use for that money. But that might just be me. Like it doesn't seem to me like it.
It's a lot like the Monarch education in a way.
I also feel that way about that one.
So we've gone through all of them.
So Emily, how did you group the sidewalk ones together?
One of them I don't know where it came from actually. Hold on, I have to find the number. it's gotten unwieldy, this list of, so there's one of the sidewalk ones is a person I don't know, and I don't know what it's about.
Guy Kennedy?
No, West something, maybe?
Was that 21 or 21B?
21.
21B was Guy
Yeah.
Kennedy.
Right, so that one,
I just added it in because it was basically him echoing we should have a pedestrian byway between the center and the flats. So I just added that in because he took the time to fill out a whole proposal, but it was along the exact same vein as West Cars, which is that we should have a sidewalk path between the center and the flats.
West Car, that's the one. So who's that?
I don't know.
Yeah, so all of those ones don't really have anything to do with the one that's being like orchestrated with the town. So for me, like, I think we should just take all those ones and just call it support for the sidewalk.
I
Because
agree.
the only person that's really working with the town, or only group that's really working with the town, to my knowledge, is the rec committee.
And
And Isabel is our representative dealing with that, but all that gets filtered back to the rec committee. So we work with her to like redirect based on whatever feedback we're getting from the town.
But
So-
your ARPA proposal was only for the feasibility study.
Well,
No,
so
there was another one for the center sidewalk too, I think.
this has evolved, right? Okay, so the last iteration of this that I'm aware of, and Jennifer, you may know more than I do, is that they decided to apply, okay, so they wanted to start building sidewalk. But then, you have to remind me the first name of the person who does, Nick said that, we really needed to go through the process of getting the feasibility done, right? So like, it wasn't okay to just, well, I don't know, it seems like there's some disagreement here about which is the best path forward. But there was the ability to apply for the CCRPC money, right? So they decided to go ahead and spend money to apply. So that's in here. That is number,
9.
Nine.
The select board voted to spend that money from the town budget.
Correct.
Right.
That's not ARPA anymore.
Exactly. So they put in this proposal, and they're supposed to hear back sometime this summer, right? So then the rec committee is like, okay, if we're going to hear back, does that mean we can build, right? So they're still really pushing building sidewalk, right? So that's, I think, where the other one came from.
$50,000
to get the
for concrete.
supplies. Sorry, I had all these.
32,
Is it 32?
I think.
Yeah, right, exactly. Is that not where that came
No.
from?
No, that's a
No, that-
reserve for the sidewalk project. Like, let's set aside all this money into a fund and wait until we
Yeah,
can
so-
spend it.
Where did that one come from?
My wife,
Okay,
Which we can't do.
you said
Okay.
in the town meeting that you could put money aside in the budget.
okay, so
You
that,
said it. It's right in the town meeting minutes.
Yeah, well, I got clarification from the VLCT that you cannot set up a fund unless it's going to be spent by the 26th.
Okay, but the
2027.
proposal actually says buy the damn cement and buy the gravel and put it in the town garage.
That they can do.
Right, that they can do.
Yeah, they can spend the money. It just has to be spent. They
Yeah,
can't have a
okay.
fund.
Fine.
So, but then the other one was I think what you're talking about is the center sidewalk number 9, which is the 50,000, and that was what the estimate for materials to just build the center.
yeah,
Brad had laid out the short term, like
mhm,
how do you get from the town pond
Right.
yeah,
to here?
right,
Yes.
right.
To
Did it go all the way to UCS or just to?
It's UCS to Moore Park.
UCS to Moore Park.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
the
you
small
can do-
section.
According to Brad, you could do that without too much.
You don't have to go get, you don't have
Put
to,
that slope issue in there?
you don't have to get right away. You don't have to pay
Yeah.
anybody for their
I
frontage.
think
Yeah.
there were fewer intersections. was what
Yeah.
you-
And the other two bridges, so that bridge is wide enough for a
Right.
sidewalk, and the other two bridges require
Right.
more engineering to be able to put a sidewalk across the other two bridges.
Most offices.
So
What proposal covers that specific cost?
that is,
The 50,000, I think.
no, that's, oh yeah,
Number
so that's the
9.
building cost, so that's number 9.
That's number 9.
But, this has evolved, like, so, what happens is, and here's something that's like flawed in this whole process. Okay, so we've got rec committee, We want to build a sidewalk, right? We've got a bunch of volunteers, all parents of multiple children, that are trying to like figure out how to move this forward with the town. We hear about ARPA, we want to take advantage of it. We got Isabel, mother of 4 very young children, like running around trying to figure out like how the town needs to build a sidewalk, you know? So I think what she's trying to do is she's just trying to like morph the proposals into something that's actually fundable from the town's perspective. So she's been working with Nick and she's been working with Brad to try to agree on like how we could use ARPA funding to move the sidewalk project faster. I
In
think,
any fashion.
yeah, exactly. Like
Just we-
feasibility, yeah,
Just
exactly.
give us some money
The
for
goal,
the sidewalk.
the end goal is a sidewalk in Underhill Center that goes from the school to Sand Hill, right? Which will eventually be linked to some sort of multi-use recreation path that goes to the flats, right? Like that's the end goal. So then she's trying to figure out like, what can I propose that gets us closer to that goal? And I don't care what it is, really.
Right.
None of us care,
Right.
just as long as it's like moving forward. So to me, it's kind of a silly process that's actually kind of like, I mean,
Frustrating and silly.
it's kind of silly, yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, okay, we just want a sidewalk. Like, and we want some money to go towards the sidewalk, and it's almost like the town, it's like it needs us to motivate to drive it forward, or, you know, like, think
Right.
about it, talk about it and stuff like that, which we're happy to do. But at the end of the day, you know, we'll do what we think is the town will support, you know? So
And
that's where it is.
And then his wife came in and she's basically saying, you know, we know we want to do the damn sidewalk.
Yeah,
So let's just, if we know we're gonna build it
yeah,
and we've got this money,
yeah,
then let's take some money and
Right.
throw it at the sidewalk.
Right.
And whether it's buying materials and being ready to roll. I mean,
right.
so that's what Lori's saying.
That's right.
So, I mean, the rec committee is like, whoa, like, we were only thinking we could do feasibility, but if you're saying we can build, yeah, let's build, you know?
Right.
It's like, that's what we want to do, like, what, we don't need to do feasibility. Then Nick's coming back saying, well, actually, you do need to do feasibility, so, you know, that's where we're just like, okay, well, whatever step we can fund and do, we want to do.
Right.
And there's other money available for sidewalks, that's the other tricky thing about the sidewalk, but it's just a time thing, you know? So it's like, and we also think that there'll be more support if part of it is done already, right? So like, you don't want to have a sidewalk to nowhere. So if we, some traction with, so, I mean, to me, the most critical section of this whole, that's all we got out of this was a sidewalk that goes from UCS to Stevensville. I'd be happy, right? Because to me, that is just highly dangerous, that camp kids.
It's horrific.
Like, they have a woman who works there in a wheelchair. Like, these people go like down that every day in the summer. I run on it all the time, always feeling like I'm gonna get hit by a car. Like, it's just really dangerous, that one little section. So,
Yeah,
So
see,
it seems in summary that we have a lot of applications that are basically about feasibility.
yeah,
And there's an application into the Chittenden County development that they might take care of it. So that's kind of in limbo. And we have 2 applications that say, to me, cleverly say, spend some money on actual things, whether it be surveying or buying materials. And if we propose those to the select board, then we're basically telling the select board to please fish or cut bait.
Right.
That's my summary of the situation.
Well,
yeah.
I need some clarification on all of it. So I've heard you mention the sidewalk seems to be starting at the school,
Yeah.
but where it ends, you have mentioned about 3 different spots.
Right.
No, so it ends at Sand Hill. The question is, it ends at Sand Hill. It's just a matter of how long it takes to get there, right? So like, if you can build part of it, so Moore Park would be like, it'd be like 3 phases. So actually, you know, Isabel has a really nice presentation about this, which I keep thinking
Yes.
needs to be circulated, where it draws through this, all the whole plan, you know, it goes, and she has like a kind of a 3-phase plan to building, which involves the first part being the school to Moore Park, because that can be done more easily than the other 2 sections which cross the other 2 bridges, basically, right? So she has it kind of separated in this proposal, which has been proposed to the select board, you know, like with a a plan of how it could be built in these 3 phases, right? And that you could split the funds and everything up into 3 phases, right? So this first phase, she thinks could be built immediately, according to Brad, could be built immediately without any further studies. I think they decided to submit the application for more studies anyway, and they're gonna get a response back in the summertime, June or July.
So the select board authorized Nick to submit a
Yeah.
request to CCRPC
Yeah,
to fund $80,000
yeah,
for a sidewalk from Casey's Hill to Park Street. So the plan, in that sense, is actually a bit longer than what you said. It
Yeah.
doesn't stop at Sand Hill,
yeah,
and it starts at Casey's Hill.
yeah, and I don't know why. That
Well,
part I
if a
don't.
if a
Very sure.
feasibility study is going to be done, it might as well be for all of it. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's why you're doing it.
Well,
They got enthusiastic.
Yeah, I don't know why the other direction, I don't know even like that, I was actually even wondering if that was accurate, but like the plan, the master plan is to Park Street, right?
Right.
So
and has,
that's what the goal is.
it's like the plan for nuclear fusion, it's 30 years
Yeah.
away and always will be kind of thing, is where we've been on that. But, and I believe me, I support you 100% on that. But if we've got a meaningful plan that works from the school to Moore Park, the town owns the road and controls the road. Why don't we build the bloody thing?
Right,
What are we
that's-
waiting for?
that's
If
what
Where's
a
the
lot of
proposal?
people are saying, right? Like, can we just
Have
go
we got
ahead
an
and start
estimate for
building
it? Have we
it?
got an estimate for it? Have we got an actual layout for it?
Sort of a layout, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so she has a, like a
Sort of
a
an
proposal
actual-
of
Yeah,
where
number
they're-
9.
Layout are two different
Brad
things.
did something.
Yeah,
Right,
So it seems to me like we don't have to pick out one of these proposals or 2 of them or something to approve.
no,
We can create our own proposal and
Right.
say, we want to fund a sidewalk from here to here that's cost X number of dollars
mhm,
and is going to be built within the next 2 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'd
mean,
like
we
to see
kind
a
of,
phase 2 for that. I'm in.
we kind of want to see the town, I mean, it's really at the end of the day, there's multiple sources of funding available, like the town knows what needs to be done. It's just a matter of us, I mean, it's like we're supporting it, we think some of the money could be used for that, we're trying to make a case for it within rec committee, but it's not really this is not really our area of expertise, like any of the volunteers on that committee don't really know. Like, I can't tell you don't need a feasibility study, I don't even know what a feasibility study is.
Right,
You know,
right,
like,
right.
so, like, you guys need to tell us if it's, and we'll write proposals, sure, you know, like, we're supporting this, we'll do what we need to do. But,
What you need, if you're
the town
doing,
just needs to commit to it. Like, the town needs to say, okay, we're gonna do this. And, you know, what's interesting about this is when I started on the rec committee, it was like a no-fly zone, the sidewalk, right? Like, I was like, why doesn't this town have a sidewalk? People are like, whoa,
Oh, don't go there.
you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, well, let's talk about the town fund then and the skating rink and stuff. And then all of a sudden, recently, like, you know, Isabel was like, let's do sidewalk, you know? And then we're like, well, we already know that as soon as you start talking about going to the flats, everyone's gonna like dismiss you. Maybe we could maybe the safety argument with kids coming from the school to the town pond could be like our starting point, right? So that's really was the starting point. Like, what can we do? We want there to be the whole thing. What can we actually do, right?
Yeah.
So that's why this whole process is really like it's
It's not
kind of
black and white.
annoying for us. It's taking a lot of time,
Yeah.
and we're like submitting to this process, but yeah. So I think this committee needs to say, okay, the sidewalk is a good use of, like, when we rank sidewalk versus other project, it is a good use of money, you know?
All you have to do is say how much. This committee needs to say to the select board, we think X amount of the ARPA
Right.
funds should go towards building
and
a sidewalk.
we can take all of these proposals,
Doesn't
we
matter.
can make our own accommodation, we got it all in front of us.
Yep.
right.
And we can say, we want X amount of dollars.
doesn't have to
We think
fit into this little block.
This makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
To do this, given the proposals that we received.
Yeah.
It's not like we have to rubber stamp one and not another. We got this stuff in front of us. You say we have this information. I would like to see what the actual proposal is and get some numbers associated with it. But Nonetheless, I would feel comfortable, given that it's within our budget and doesn't use 100% of it, that we would say, we think we ought to be doing this. We would build the bloody sidewalk.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to suggest that we do between now and the next meeting. And that is to have a ARPA committee proposal that defines a sidewalk plan. Now, I would like to see that plan start at Casey's Hill and go to the flats where the existing sidewalk is, but that may not be realistic. And it may be that it needs to be broken up into multiple plans, like doing this section here first and then another section or something. But we need somebody or a couple people who want to work on defining that proposal and putting a dollar amount on it. And I don't think the proposal has to have a lot of words in it. I mean, you know, what we want to do is to build a sidewalk. And somebody else can say, well, we have to do this, this, and this. Well, fine. And we've given you enough money to do that.
Yeah, so what Isabel's been trying to do is submit proposals for things that she thinks could be funded by the ARPA funding, which is feasibility studies and potentially this first phase of building, right?
Which is pretty specific.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that anything more than that is going to not be feasible within the constraints of ARPA, right? So then I think it's up to the town.
Except, except you could just take a chunk of money and go buy materials.
Well, yeah, so I guess she's being told, we're being told, like originally we thought only feasibility study is the only thing that's possible, right? So that's why the first thing that we were gonna do was feasibility study, right? Then, Brad started saying, no, this is after ARPA, right? We're like, the only thing that could be done in the timeline is feasibility because everyone's been telling us it took like 10 years to build the sidewalk, whatever. So we're not even thinking about building. It's Brad who is like, you can build, who works for the town, right? Like you could build, right? So then we're like, yeah, screw the proposal, like let's build then, And then Nick's like, no, like you need to have feasibility. So we're like, all right. Feasibility then, like whatever the first step is, that's what we want to fund. So that's why the proposals are going in like that, and she's already presented the vision to the select board. Like she's like, this is the bigger vision, right? Like these are why we want to do it. These are like other sources of funding that are available.
She did a great presentation.
Yeah.
Pulls it all together.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's like this combination of feasibility and an initial building. Now this storing materials and stuff like that is not something that's come up, or we don't think that that's something that we can do, like that's not, unless this committee wants to go and say that,
Well,
so
it's just to the select board and let them decide whether they want to think that's the thing that they would like to do. One of the thoughts was that at some point the town is going to have to put up a big chunk of change for this sidewalk. And you missed my speech on how poor Underhill is.
Yeah.
Underhill's very poor.
Yeah.
It doesn't maintain its buildings, doesn't maintain its roads,
Right.
So the more money that can come from someplace else, the better. So ARPA is the town's money in a sense. So it looks like the town is spending a lot of money when they apply for grants to the state and to other foundations. That was part of the motivation.
That was one thing that's come up in the rec committee too, is that if you start this project, like let's say you build the first section and you show commitment to getting it done, then these other grants and stuff might be might be easier to get the rest of it built.
The feasibility study
I don't know if that's true or not.
But basically, if you're looking for funds that come from the state/feds, so the state passes through this, then you need what's called a scoping study, which is kind of like a feasibility study, and that's kind of what.
I feel like that's what this.
Yeah, that's kind of what you need for that. But the town can just simply engineer it and build it. Now you do need to have it surveyed. You need to know what the slopes are. You need to know what the drainage is, and so there's got to be some kind of engineering study
yeah.
associated with it, but we can go in and just say, we are going to do this out of our money and just go and do it. We own the road, we control the road, we control what's going on with it. Generally there are a few kind of rules that you pay attention to, but that's relatively straightforward. And you can build the thing, and then we'll have something that will make things safer and so on and so forth. Now, the prospect of getting it either all the way to the flats, maybe Casey's Hill would be fairly easy compared to the flats, but I have been part of at least 2 major campaigns in the Flats Wars since I've been in Underhill, and and the River Road Wars, and it's been a big mess each time because everybody's decided that all of them from Burlington are going to ride out here on their bicycles and steal their big screen TVs and ride off with them or something. I don't know, but it's basically there's this whole thing. Don't bother me. This is liberal stuff and get out of here with it. And it's died in flames each time, but nonetheless, I would be willing to rejoin that fight yet again, and maybe it will work this time, maybe 3 times the charm, but so that's going to require a study, and we'll need to put money into a study for that. But this does not require a study.
So I have an interesting email from Isabel that I got actually right before this meeting, which I forgot about, but she was saying that, okay, so she's been working with Jen, Nick, and Brad on, I'm assuming this Jen is you Jen, or is it another Jen that she's been working with?
I don't know.
She said that they're reaching out to Jen, Nick, and Brad, right? She says that not everybody's on the same page about smaller section versus entire stretch, right? With the so she said, where it stands right now, we're just waiting on the ARPA committee to make a decision. Apparently the planning commission has offered to help guide them if that's what they need, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he said, Nick commented that many groups and forces are interested in getting this done, so the ball is well in motion.
Yep.
Okay, so this is
I don't think
not
we
really.
need to concern ourselves with the details.
No.
I think
Yeah.
I
so
don't
many
either.
other people.
I
have
think
put the work
simply
in.
need to just say,
this is
we're
a
gonna-
huge priority.
We recommend
Here's
committing X
an
amount of
money.
funds.
Spend it as
Do
you
it.
see fit.
Yeah.
So this is what I was trying to figure out, is if we can define a starting and stopping point that people agree with,
Mm-hmm.
and say that from what we understand or what we are told, that can be built for X number of dollars, that we can vote to put X number of dollars of the ARPA funds into that.
Right.
That's all we have to do as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Do you think that reaching out to the planning commission is helpful?
I don't think you need to.
No,
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you need to
No.
estimate the cost. I think you say that we know this will cost more than this. Here's what we think. Here's a suggestion.
So then
of how
the tricky
much
part of that is
ARPA.
just making sure that the amount you allocate is something that can be spent by the deadline, right?
Well,
a sidewalk
a year
project.
goes by and they think that they've screwed up, then they're gonna spend it
can
on
spend
something
it on
else.
something
They spend
else.
it on
Yeah,
something
It's
else.
not your problem.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Yeah, so I think that's a good approach, because to be honest, the rest of this is a little bit waste of time. Like for people like me to be like
Who have
getting
other things.
estimates.
Yeah.
Right,
For
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
or like with Isabel with her 4 kids, like
No.
running around trying to
No.
get quotes for like building a sidewalk,
Really, you need to hire an engineer. It's got to be engineered.
Right.
The
Yeah.
drainage has got to work. It's got to be surveyed.
Right.
But again, that's not for a committee or anyone, that's for the town to go
Exactly.
hire
Right.
someone.
So I think what Isabel did, where she made the presentation to the town and she put the vision together, I mean, really that's where us as like lowly parent volunteers should really like stop and be like, okay,
That's
now
right.
we made the case for this,
So one of the reasons I'm mentioned so much about getting a dollar amount is because when I did my original divvying up some dollars to see how many I could give away,
Mhm.
the number one thing that I put down was some money for the sidewalk.
Mhm.
Where did it come from? Other than the clear blue, right?
Mhm.
I looked at these numbers and everything and said, I'm willing to put this much money into sidewalks. I would like that number to be a little more than just me pulling it out of the air.
Mhm.
So, because that's where I'm going to start.
So how do we get an estimate about how to build the first section then? Because that's where I might start as the.
Exactly the question. Where do we get
So
that?
how do you get that?
Well,
I don't
I
honestly
don't know how
think
much
that
the
like
flat sidewalk
rec
costs.
committee has the capacity
Use
to
that
figure
as
that
a
out.
dollars per
Right,
foot.
per foot, yeah,
Right.
Yep.
yeah, pretty simple.
So can,
Also, the regional planning sometimes
Can
has some
somebody
of
do
these
that?
fees for pedestrian stuff. In the
Yeah.
past, they've had a nice
Nick should be able to
compilation.
do that for
Yep,
us.
exactly.
right,
Okay, so Jen,
so let's put that in the budget then, the like
So,
first phase
Jen-
of that.
next time, or actually before next time, I would like you to send us a number.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first part of the sidewalk
Mhm.
thing. And now let's talk about the second or more parts. Are we going to fund anything from wherever this one stops to,
I think the issue with that is that there's not, well, now, you know, this hoarding materials thing is not something that I had thought about, but like our impression was that nothing else was feasible on the timeline. So like you cannot build the other two sections because of the need to like re-engineer those bridges. I think
Okay.
that's my understanding.
but that doesn't mean that we can't give money to get the engineering study done, to get this done, to get that done.
Right.
All these things that happen before you,
Yeah, so
that you put the shovel in the
Regional
ground.
planning funds these kinds of studies.
so that's already out there. Like that is already, that the money has already been spent for that, right? Like the,
well, it won't be
requested.
spent unless we get the
Yeah, the grant
no,
application.
but the CRC.
16,000. But we haven't spent it yet. We won't spend
Oh,
this,
okay.
our 16 unless we are awarded the $80,000
Okay,
award.
yeah, okay.
Then our out
But-
of pocket for
Right,
that
okay,
study
so
is
that's
16.
what we're gonna find out in June or July, right? Yeah, so,
And that's the way to pursue
Right.
these other
The
sections.
big
Exactly.
sections,
Yeah.
yeah.
exactly. So that, okay, so that's what they wanted. They wanted to get that piece right. Okay, now I'm remembering.
So
they
I will
wanted-
find out the
which-
price per foot
I think
approximately,
makes
or
sense.
whatever the cost is for building this initial section.
So I think it makes sense to earmark the amount that they want if they get for the CRCPD study, right? Like for, that's what the one thing
Is
they
there
want to know.
a
is gonna be-
presentation or a PowerPoint or something? I'd
Yeah.
like to look at this. I have worked in this before and I'd like to at least look at it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I can reach out, I'll email Isabel right now, actually, and ask her if she can send us the presentation.
That would be helpful. I can maybe help Jennifer pull together some.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's sidewalks.
That was
Let's
fun.
move on
It's 7:30, just so you know.
and go through, starting with number one and identifying either the ones that are not eligible because they're not eligible, they don't follow it, or that we deem, there's a couple of them that we just said were frivolous that we're not going to consider. Because there's no sense in going through a rating of those guys.
Right.
So I'm going to start going through, and I think we could come to consensus fairly easy on these, but let's go. So for example, number one, I think we agree is not eligible.
Yeah.
Number two is eligible. 3 is eligible. 4 is eligible. 5,
Yeah, that's the
6.
Frisbee.
Frisbee golf.
Didn't 6 get integrated into
Yep.
the existing town budget?
Yep,
Yeah, so
So-
that's funded, right?
yep. That's-
Oh, okay, so
Pull that out.
So we
Already in
can-
the budget.
Okay. So now number 7 is one that says sidewalk. So we don't have to say non-eligible. We'll just pick one of the numbers to go to
Right.
be the sidewalk one. And the one that I had picked for that was 17.
Okay.
So 17 is going to be the sidewalk.
Sorry, I don't have that in front of me. 17 is which one?
And all the others that say sidewalk,
Yes,
are we
I
going to
agree with
cross
that.
off?
Yes.
Okay.
I would start with that one.
Okay,
But we need to submit an alternate one that has the building.
Yes,
costs
we
for it.
will.
Yeah, okay.
But
Yeah,
but for-
17 is a legit.
But when we go in to put our
Yeah.
rating in it, that,
Yeah.
okay. So 10 is okay, correct? 10?
Number 8, you skipped 8.
Oh, I skipped 8. Oh, okay.
yeah,
It's okay.
8 is
We're keeping
okay.
it.
Okay. So 9 is the first sidewalk that we're going to X out.
yep.
Mhm.
10 is okay.
Yeah.
11 is okay.
But we got no number.
Yeah, there's no budget, number 11.
Oh, that's right. So what do we want to do about these that don't have a budget?
Give them a chance, I guess.
Yeah, you gotta keep it there for now. Right?
Eligible, but we'll vote on it.
It's eligible, but we're gonna put numbers on it.
We're gonna put numbers on it? Okay, that's fine.
Well, they have to put numbers on it.
No, I mean, we're gonna put.
We're
1, 2,
gonna
3,
put a
4.
rating, or
Yeah.
1 to 4 rating number.
Okay.
12 is the fire department, it's okay.
Yeah,
13,
that's the budget to needy citizens.
I already,
I think we
emailed her.
Ineligible.
oh, okay, yeah, that's right. 14,
That's been reconsidered, ineligible,
okay.
pulled out.
15,
That's a very incomprehensible thing. We're building a parking lot for a private business.
that's right. So this is one where I think we can't say it's ineligible because he did the right thing. I can't imagine us
Yeah.
putting any money into
I
it.
think it's still eligible though. I mean, we have to go,
Okay,
right?
so people can,
Get a number.
okay. 16 is okay. 17 is okay. 18 is okay. 19,
Every resident getting a broadband is also, I think, ineligible.
Yeah.
yes. 20, 21 is a sidewalk, so we're going to
Slash.
put
Yeah.
that out.
121
B out.
also.
21B is out.
The bus service is ineligible, that's not our job.
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah,
And neighbors helping neighbors is ineligible too.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay. We're up to 24.
more park improvements, we can vote on that.
We can vote on that, yep. 25, 26,
Playgrounds, rebound walls, we can vote on that.
27. Who is this person that entered 27 for 100,000?
Yeah,
I was just the representative.
28 is eligible.
yeah,
29,
that's, you're suggesting we
Sand Hill
buy property.
Cemetery access.
Yeah,
Yeah.
by buying property, right, from neighbors?
Now, it's my understanding that the right of way already exists. Actually was looking into it and.
It's right across from Isabel's
Yeah,
house.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
a road that goes up that we,
Yeah, the
No.
right of way exists. Now, there's no parking area, so,
Correct.
but the right of way already exists, so you don't have to buy a right of way. But you would have to construct a very
How
large,
wide is the right of way?
I don't know what the width is. It's
I was wondering if you could park on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't
Steep
believe-
you
hill
could, but nothing else would be
on
there.
It's a
Wouldn't be able to
steep
get
hill
by.
on Sand
Yeah.
Hills,
Yeah, it's really not accessible.
right
by
in the
vehicle.
blind spot on
Yeah.
River Road.
Right.
People usually park at the bottom of Sand
Sand Hill and
Hill
walk over.
and walk over.
But we're gonna keep it as far as
Evaluating it?
evaluating it, right? Okay.
Well, I guess, I mean, with the, half of it, doesn't it already exist?
So this is 30, 31, 32 is the side.
30 is the streetlights.
Okay, so that's,
The streetlights have already been upgraded to LEDs.
no, it's about,
No,
Every pole.
no, this is about adding streetlights to like Park Street and some additional ones in Underhill
Well, I
Center.
read it was just changing out existing to LEDs, okay.
No, he wants to place.
That was a
they
different
wanna-
one.
Streetlights on all utility poles within the village limits of both villages.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
so it's
see.
basically, the concern right now, I think, is Park Street is the biggest concern right now.
Okay. Inadequate illumination.
Correct.
Okay. got it.
And that's something where just, it is an ongoing cost. It doesn't cost, it's not an ARPA, it wouldn't be a one-time expenditure. It's it's on our Green Mountain Power bill. We pay a streetlight fee. I forget the exact price, but it's $100 and something
Yeah.
a year or something. I don't know.
okay, so we're Xing out 30.
Yeah,
Okay.
I-
And
Okay.
what about 31? I can't remember that one.
so,
That one was to place,
It was lights at Moore Park, Veterans Park, and at the town hall. So street lights, decorative
Oh.
lights.
Decorative lights
Decorative.
with no price here, but
Right, it seems like a valid thing to recommend. I mean, it's pretty,
Okay. we can vote on
Okay.
it.
So 32 is another sidewalk that we can,
Right.
fold in.
33 from the food shelf, 34 for the school playground.
Yeah,
Do we decide anything about the food shelf?
yeah, we can vote on that.
we can
Yep.
vote on it.
It's a one-time cost to meet their budget shortfall from last year.
So all the ones from the Energy Committee are okay to vote on.
Yeah.
And then we have 36, which is,
Wait, did you get the rec field?
that's the
Yeah,
one I'm reading
36.
right now.
36.
36 to buy a recreation field.
If we can vote on it, but
I mean,
would
we
give
can
a
vote on it.
vote,
I don't,
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that one's out.
you know, there's a difference between voting on it and thinking anyone's going to vote to
For it.
do it.
Right.
Or if it's even feasible, if the property's already under contract.
Right.
Yes. So
38
43,
is upgrading the lights to LED. Oh,
That's
is
Those,
that-
these
that's included under electrical or,
here.
yes.
Town hall lighting upgrade is what you're looking at above your heads in this room.
To LEDs from, or, as I recall.
so as we heard from Luke on 43 and 44, I think we should vote on those.
Okay.
45 is from the fire department.
Yeah.
46 and 47
Butterflies.
are okay to vote on, as is 40.
And then
Well, 48
should go back
is
to the
is
town.
what we're saying belongs in to the highway department,
Yeah,
right?
That's
highway
right.
department, that one, and,
And the stormwater issues for range.
Yeah, 49.
yeah,
And 50 as well, or no?
No, that's right, 52
Right.
also.
yeah,
And
and, yeah, 50, I guess, right?
And so what, 52, shall we X out? Okay,
Three.
okay.
Yeah, so 48, 49, 50,
And 52.
52 are like the road, town,
48, 49, 50, and 52, yes.
Okay,
and then 51. the
okay, I
film
got all the
series.
ones that are on the ineligible list.
And the otherwise X out list.
Yeah, got that.
Okay.
740, are we gonna do the ranking now?
If we don't do it now, I think we should do it now because
Okay,
we'll want to.
Just so you know, I've been asked by Bill to set up a table. And you guys are gonna give me your numbers, I'm gonna put them in here. Then I've set up a column that takes all your numbers and comes up with the average. So,
And this is like golf and bowling, low score wins.
yeah, it's gonna be hard for me to keep up with here, but,
Does it make sense just to submit these, Jennifer? I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem to me just reciting and transcribing doesn't seem to be a very,
you can give them to me and I can enter them.
Well,
Why
actually,
don't we just do it offline? Like, can we
That's
just
right.
go and go into the spreadsheet, everybody has a column, and we just rank them?
yeah, I think that makes perfect sense.
I think
see,
that
at
makes sense
first, when
too,
I
because
was
you can-
setting this up, I thought it'd be the discussion that we've been having
Yeah,
when we were doing this. But we've already had the discussion and we didn't do the
Right.
ranking, so I agree that.
but my thinking is too, like, I don't have like the details of all the proposals like in my head right now. Like, I would go and like open it and be like, what did she say again? What did they say again? You know, like
Right.
review it quickly, then rank it again, really think about it, you know, and which I think would be easier to do.
And there's a transcription issue, it's like, Jennifer's got to catch everything that everybody says.
Like, I like the idea of, having them in a spreadsheet, going in like, in your own time, ranking them.
I can just take it, I can just put this in an Excel spreadsheet and send it to all you in email, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we just put our rankings in.
Or put it up on Google Sheets, you know.
Yeah, Google
we-
Doc would be ideal.
If we use that approach, is it worth our time now to see if there's any that we all agree are fours? Because if we can reduce our total
Yeah, sure.
potential budget, like if there's some that we know we're all going to cross out,
Like
that
the field.
will potentially change our rankings as we're a little bit closer to our total budget. That would be perhaps a good
I
use
don't
of
know
our
what our
time.
budget, what's left of our budget now. We've crossed out a lot of the heavy
We've
duty
crossed out a
expenditures.
lot, and
Yeah.
if we get rid of the ones that we all agree are fours, then we'll be that much closer, which will inform our rankings
Yeah.
with a more accurate view of what we have to spend.
So how would you propose we do this? To have somebody just mention one that they think is a 4 and see what we
Yeah.
think?
Tomasi
How about-
Field gazebo.
There, okay.
I would do a 4 on that.
I'm a
Yeah.
4 on that.
I had a 4 on that too, actually.
Which number is that again?
Number 18.
15.
I will say that there has been some push for having like some sort of structure at Moore Park.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would make a lot
Yeah.
of sense to me.
I think it's
Right.
actually in here somewhere. The Moore Park is gazebo too.
Is Moore Park?
I think so, but we can see it, check it
So
out.
we're striking that one.
No, we're voting for. We're voting.
We're giving it
everybody's-
number 4.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of the same
Wait.
thing as striking, really.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's it was rated.
Right.
It was rated.
Then
Um,
the soccer, the field and
Yes,
the
right.
field one,
What-
The
that
flats
we
field,
discussed tonight, the Flats Recreation Field.
36.
correct.
I had a couple more even before that.
Okay,
The-
hold on.
The bus service, for example.
That was
That
ineligible.
one's ineligible.
Okay.
Jill, do you have did you have a rating for number 36, the recreation field?
Number 36. Oh, 4.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, I got, those two are 4s. Any others?
Well, I was gonna give a 4 to the ash tree proposal.
I'm also giving a 4 to that.
Yeah, I would too.
I did 3.
Ash trees, Jill?
I was kind of between a 3 and a 4, so I'm fine with letting it be a 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
The,
Which is
44.
44.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
number 15, the purchase of the.
Would
Oh,
that
yeah.
Oh,
tree-
yes, thank you.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
does this one not fall into the roads group also?
Probably.
It does. It's in the,
Okay,
the
so-
trees, that's in the
So
town.
you could clump that with all those other ones.
I'm gonna
47,
put that with the
48,
highway
50.
suggestion.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
The tree thing. I
So
mean,
the ash
it does
tree?
seem like something that needs to be
Right.
dealt with, but just doesn't seem like.
So it's ineligible for us, not rated for.
Yeah, right, yeah, I think
So
makes
that,
sense.
back to Diffendorfer?
Okay, that's number 15.
15. Okay,
A 4 for me.
Yeah,
I'd be good.
Okay,
I had a question mark there. I was, that 4 would be a good answer to that question, I think.
I have a 4 for that film series, 51.
I have a 3 for that, but it would depend on
I had a
how
3 for
close, how
I had
much
a-
money we have left.
Yeah.
I
Right,
had
exactly.
a 3 or 4 down. I just was waffling
Let's
between
say
it, but I,
if we don't, we can
3.
revisit that. I was looking at both 30 and 31 new streetlights, which we just said that was ineligible,
Yeah.
but the beautification and decorative lights, I had a 4 for that.
Yeah, I did as well.
I did too.
No budget. And
oh, I did too.
oh, great.
Yeah, there's not much in here. I mean, this one's almost ineligible though, actually.
Actually, I put
Doesn't have
a
any
4 also
additions.
for the
There's not much
Sand Hill
for proposal
Cemetery.
there.
Yeah, what number is that again?
29.
I had a 4 for that
Oh,
as
so did
well.
I, yeah.
Now that I know that there is a right of way, I am a 4.
Michael?
Yeah, I would go with a 4 for that.
Okay.
Yeah,
How do we feel about the butterflies?
that's pretty low for me also, but I
Yeah.
can really
Yeah.
Actually, I put 4 down for both of those.
Yeah, okay.
I was a 3 for those, but I mean,
I'd,
don't feel strongly about it.
I had a 4
I
on the
was mixed
habitat preservation one and a 3 on
Education.
a scaled down version of the educational one, but I think that one we could consider.
Okay.
The Botanic Garden, I had a 4.
Yes, I did
that
too.
one. And
I
that's well
had a 3
beyond
for
the
that
scope.
one. but-
Number
Yeah.
43, the Botanic Gardens.
Yeah, forming the steering committee.
Yeah, I think knowing that it's that as
Yeah.
opposed to, really doing something about it, I think I would
Okay.
downgrade it, but I know that, I mean, it seems like a nice thing. It's one of those things, it's like a nice idea, but.
Yeah.
It'd be lovely.
Well, I feel about all these
Beyond our
films,
scope.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not like anti-films about Underhill or anything, but it just seems like a really random thing to spend the money on.
So Michael, to tell you the truth, I put down a 4 for the pickup truck.
No, I wouldn't put a 4 for that. I would say that it's less high for me than the other one, but
I also had a 4.
it's okay.
So I guess we'll vote
But
on
it's
it.
not unanimous,
No,
so
no.
we'll wait on that one.
Yeah, okay.
We're looking for unanimous decisions.
Unanimity.
Unanimity.
Can't say it, we can't get
I
it.
think we covered all my 4s already.
Yeah, I think you covered all mine too.
Yeah, no pass for me.
Okay. Well, that was 1,
So,
2, 3,
what
4, 5, 6, 7 4s. That's good.
I have a rec committee meeting tomorrow. Does it make sense, like, I mean, for all the rec committee proposals to rank them within rec committee?
Oh, let's
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about that with the play structure, to go back to whoever submitted that and ask for like, what do you want the most of these things, I mean, there's a whole bunch of these rec committee ones, like the rebound brawl, the,
Might get the votes up for some,
I don't know,
Okay.
or do we rank them here,
Having that input, I mean, ultimately, we have to make the decision,
Right.
and ultimately, the select board has to make the decision, but having that input
It
would
might
be
help.
helpful.
Can't hurt, might help.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the rec committee spends a lot of time thinking about these things,
Yeah.
obviously, right? So I can come back to people with a ranking of what, between this rec committee proposal.
You could
what-
email that to the
Yeah,
group too.
exactly.
Right.
Say, these are the ones that are priority. Now, I tell you, there's disagreement within the rec committee about that a little bit, but I actually think we've done it before, so I'll look through my email.
So Jen, what are you going to do on the spreadsheet you have? Are you going, for all these X's that we put,
I'll just delete them. The numbers will stay the same, but I'll delete those rows.
you'll delete those rows completely? Okay.
Or hide
Then
them.
I'm go-
There's a way of hiding rows in Excel
Yeah.
that you could just hide
So
them.
that they're historic. Yep, I can hide those. And so that when you look at it, you'll only see the ones that are left to be ranked. And then I'll do a separate Google Doc with all of the rest of them and a column with each of your names.
Yeah.
And then a final column, which will be the average.
Sounds good.
So what do we want to do then for the next meeting?
And when is the next one?
And shall we start off by looking at the rating that we have
Yeah.
and see if, we can come to a consensus of the fact that it should be a 3 or a 4 or something? Because I'm guessing that when you go through this, at least when I went through it, the money I put in were obviously in numbers 4s to begin with. Those are the things and after that you went down to, and then I think we should talk about
Yeah.
how much we want to give.
Yeah. I'm sure there'll be
And-
some that have near consensus and others where there's some outliers who have a bunch of 1s and a bunch of 4s. So we'll have some plenty to talk about.
Right. So if the ones that are for the library, the Mills River Park, because these are Jericho Underhill joint things, the fire department, and there's one more, but I can't think of it right now. If you want
Runs
to,
River.
oh yes, middle school stuff. If you want to only give money for the Underhill Park,
Right.
use 40%. Let's
Yeah.
let's all use 40%.
Yeah,
That's not the exact
easier.
number, but
Yeah.
it's very close.
I think that makes
So wait, are
sense.
we putting a dollar amount on these as well?
Yes.
Okay, so a
Okay.
rating and a dollar
You'll
amount.
have a rating and, okay, you'll have 2 columns on here and in.
So do you want the dollar amount sent to you also, or?
Yeah,
we
you can
should-
do the rating and the dollar.
Okay.
No,
Wait a minute,
I
wait a
feel like
minute,
that makes
why-
it
No,
too confusing.
I'm
The
getting-
I
dollar
feel
amount's
like we
already
should-
there, right?
I feel like we should just vote and then deal with the dollar amount. Well,
Okay.
at the next.
But I'm
meeting.
not putting it in, I'm just sending the spreadsheet around. I'm
Right.
gonna put a Google spreadsheet and you guys
Yeah.
are gonna fill
The
in.
dollar
your-
amount's already been entered for the
Feel like-
project.
Well, but
I think-
that doesn't mean that we want
That
to
you
give
agree
that
on.
amount.
Oh, yeah, right, we
I
can,
mean,
You
we
can
can go
decide
back,
that at
but,
the next meeting.
yeah, I think
I vote
if
for
we're
that
way
for next
over.
meeting.
I don't think we should give that to Jen, but we should go through and think about how much dollar amount you
Okay.
I think we
might
should
want
look
to.
at the votes, like who, like, and then from there figure out, then start talking about
We
that.
might be really close. I mean, by the time we've eliminated the big, a lot of the big ticket items right off the bat. I mean, they're not
No,
even
no,
in there
no, we
anymore.
haven't.
And if we consider ones that we have unanimous, strong support for, then we're really narrowing down what
Right.
we actually have to discuss and.
All we
and
have to do
haggle
is to
over
see
to
if
the ones
people
we like.
want to give
Right.
something besides what was asked for.
So our next meeting, is it the first Monday that we're supposed to be?
Well, let's just
I think we were the
Second.
second.
Let's just,
We can't, because there's things that happen in here typically on other nights, but I just can't remember.
Second Monday is where we started. That's why I was confused why we didn't meet last week, actually.
Right.
Because
I was
on my
too.
calendar, I had it as last week. And then there's
It was
second
because
Monday.
Bill wanted to change it.
Yeah,
Okay,
right,
no, that's
exactly.
great. I just didn't understand that when we were.
But I think
doing
that
it.
the standing meeting had been second Monday.
So it's the 13th
Yeah, okay.
of March.
I'm sorry, I have to go. I've got a.
so 1, 2, that's 3 weeks from today. We got 3 weeks to do this.
So you'll give us something that,
Yes,
PowerPoint or
I just
whatever
emailed
around.
her, following
Great.
her meeting.
great, thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
3/13. Okay,
6 o'clock until we agree on numbers, on dollars.
did you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Second.
Okay.